Excellent. We'll wait for those. There we are. There we are. Thanks very much, everyone. I build robots. I build robots for children. And we build robots for children because we want to help children who have to do very difficult tasks. Things like doing their homework, or sticking to their therapy, or learning a new language. And this started for me about 12 years ago, when we started working with robots and children with autism. When we started this process, 1 in every 500 children in the United States was diagnosed with autism. Today, the CDC says that that number is 1 in every 33. And that number is continuing to grow. And we found that when we put robots together with these children, we saw some amazing and almost unbelievable things happening. And I want to show you a short video of a child with autism who's about 12 years old. And he has language. He speaks, which not all children with autism have. But he's been training himself and being taught how to use the right tone of his voice. So he knows the right words to say, but he doesn't know the right way to say them. He often says something that should make you happy, and it sounds like he's very angry. And so we've brought into this situation a small robot to help him with this task. And to do this, the robot walks across this little mat, and we told the boy that the robot is afraid of water. And every time the robot gets to a piece of water, it gets scared and it stops. And his job is to encourage the robot to cross that river. And so you'll see his behavior first before we bring the robot out.
I really gotta play with him again.
And this is his typical behavior.
Yeah.
He doesn't make eye contact with us. He doesn't even face us.
How many games do I play with them?
He repeats what we say.
Mini battles.
And then we bring out this small robot dinosaur. And the robot walks up to a river, and it starts to look scared, and it starts to sound scared.
You can do it, come on, Cleo.
And he's very excited. He's very interested in being able to encourage that robot. You'll also see him do things like you'll see him glance at the woman in the far right, just there. That little behavior is called social referencing. It's a very important social skill that we almost never see him do. And after 5 minutes with the robot,
I don't remember.
this is the kind of change in his behavior that we see.
One day I tried to turn it on, it just wasn't working right.
He's not quite facing us yet,
Yeah.
but he's making eye contact, and he's involved in the conversation, and he's taking part in what's going on. Now, unfortunately, we send him home, and 20 minutes later, he's back to the behavior that he had before the robot came out. But we started trying to see if this was something that we could exploit, if we could use to his advantage this technology. And so after many, many hundreds of children with this technique, we started to realize that we didn't have the right underlying technology. That is, we could build robots that were good for 5 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but that couldn't last over a period of weeks or months. And so we started a project to try to build robots that are able to shape what they can teach and grow and adapt with the child. And in order to do that, we need to change the way we think about building these machines. We need to be able to model the interplay of the social dynamic, the back and forth between the robot and the child. We need to be able to personalize the kinds of instruction that we're providing. And we need to be able to have something that can change and adapt as the child gets more competent and learns more. So we've been doing that for the last few years with a wide variety of different topics. And I'm going to show you 2 more of them today. We started teaching nutrition to first graders. Most first graders in the United States don't get to pick their own food. They get given something for breakfast and given something for lunch. And we wanted to get to them before they started to make their own choices. And so with groups of children in Los Angeles and groups of children in Connecticut, we started having them play with this little dragon-like robot. And as they played with it over a period of 3 weeks, the dragon started introducing them to some concepts about nutrition. It's better to eat the whole wheat bread than the white bread. It's better to have the water than the soda every time. And so here's one of our first graders interacting with this robot. This one happens to be blue rather than red.
Why don't you tell me what we learned last time?
That the wheat bread is healthy and water is healthy too.
That's right. I should be eating whole grains and not drinking too much sugar.
And so she's learned, after a few interactions with the robot, some of these basic bits of nutrition. And over time, her interactions with the robot get more and more deep and more complex. Initially, she just answers yes and no questions from the robot. And after a few sessions, she starts relating what the robot talks about to the kinds of choices that she had at dinner the night before. And that's the kind of thing that we want to be able to do. The robots are motivation, but the robots are also carrying an important educational message. Now, we've been working in autism for 10 years and nutrition for about a year, and now I'm going to show you a project that we've been involved with for just a few weeks, so it's not quite as polished yet. But this uses a very small, minimalistic robot that's about this tall. And the robot has been teaching language. We've been working with first grade students who speak Spanish at home and who come into English-speaking classrooms and need a little bit of extra tutoring. And so the robot tries to personalize the content of what it's teaching the child. And it tells a story, and the children work together with the robot on a little story. And depending upon what that child's particular abilities are, the story changes. So you'll see here one of our first graders who has difficulty in translating the Spanish verb hacer into English, which can either be make or do. And so here he is with one of our little robots.
Necesito mi gorro extra. Por favor, también dile que haga espacio para mi gorro en inglés.
You can do a space more.
Bueno, estamos listos para irnos. Deberíamos de hacer un baile para celebrar todo nuestro trabajo duro.
And the robot is a way in which he can get more practice. It doesn't take the place of a teacher. It doesn't take the place of the kinds of instructions that we want him to be getting from his parents or from instructors in the classroom. But it gives him individualized instruction and leverages the time that teachers can have. Now, one of the questions that we always get asked is, why do you do this with a robot? Why not do it with something on a tablet or on a phone? Wouldn't that be easier to distribute and cheaper? And the answer is yes, absolutely it would be. But there are two real advantages to having that physical robot there. The first is that people are more likely to listen to what the robot says. We did this as an experiment where people came in and they either sat next to this, again, small human-like robot or next to a video display of the robot. And we asked them to do different things. They had to put some things away and file some documents and do some proofreading for us. And then we asked them one critical set of tasks. We told them, there are some piles of books sitting around in the office. It happened to be my office. And we told them, the robot knows where the books belong. And so the robot would then point to a nice pile of books and point to a location on the shelf. And everyone got up and picked up the books and walked over and put them away. And then the robot did the one trick question. The robot pointed to this nice, expensive pile of textbooks on my desk and then pointed to the trash can. And the question was, how many people would take that nice, expensive pile of books and throw them away because the robot said so? And when they were seated next to the real robot, 2/3 of them, the line in blue, picked up the books and walked over to the trash can and threw them away without a second thought. And when they sat next to the virtual robot, even though it did exactly the same things, only about 20% of them did that. They all knew what the robot was asking. They all picked up the books. They all walked over to the trash can. Then they tried to negotiate with the robot, usually. Are you sure that you want me to throw them away? Some of them hid the books behind the textbook, or hid the textbooks behind the trash can. One person put the books on the floor and tried to push the trash can on top of it. Anything to avoid actually throwing them away. Now, this shouldn't surprise us. This physical presence makes us more willing to go along with a tough job, like doing your homework. We know this in business. If you're trying to make the big sale, you don't call them on the phone, you don't video conference with them, you go there in person. You're more compelling in person. And that same thing applies to robots. Now, the second reason we use real robots is that people learn more. We gave people this puzzle task to solve, where you have to solve this Sudoku-like puzzle, where you have to satisfy constraints on the rows and constraints on the columns. And there are certain skills that you can learn if you have a row of 8 spaces, and you know that 6 of them have to be filled in, 6 consecutive blocks. It doesn't matter whether you start at the beginning or you start at the end, the middle 4 are always going to be filled in. And so we had people come in and we gave them this test. Can you solve these puzzles? We had them solve 4 puzzles. Some people had no help at all. They were taught the rules of the puzzle, but they had no help. Some people got instruction from a voice, a disembodied voice. Some of them got the same instruction, but from a video of a robot on the screen. And some of them got exactly that same instruction, but from a real physical robot sitting next to them. Now, the first puzzle and the 4th puzzle were actually exactly the same puzzle. They were just rotated 90 degrees. So they were exactly the same difficulty. And we looked at how fast people were in solving that last puzzle compared to the first one. And if we gave them no help whatsoever, they improved their time by about 2 minutes. If we gave them instruction from the voice or from the video, they improved their time by about 3.5 minutes. And if they got that same instruction from a real robot, they improved by almost 6 minutes. They learned more from that physical device. This is why you tell your students that you should actually go to class. Being there in person makes a difference. So that's what I do. I build robots for kids. And our hope is that we're going to be able to do this to address a number of different issues, to do it inexpensively and be able to replicate them widely. Thanks very much.